back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast, where strategy meets soul and leadership is brewed with meaning. Now, listeners, today's guest is someone whose wisdom has shaped markets, inspired teams across continents, and is now guiding individuals to lead with deeper purpose. Listeners, my guest, Ahmet Bozer, he is a renowned leadership thought leader and former president of Coca-Cola International, and he joins us today to share a fresh lens on what it means to grow, evolve, and truly lead from within. His upcoming book, Soulgery, is not just a leadership guide, it is a call to action for anyone who is seeking to unlock their potential through life's real, raw, and sometimes challenging experiences. Listeners, this episode is more than just about business. It is about transformation. It is about self inquiry and aligning success with soul. So let's quickly dive in on this episode of BizBlend with me, your host, Sana. So, Ahmed, welcome to the show, and I'm absolutely honored to have you here with us.
Thank you, Sana, and it's my pleasure and honor to be on your show.
Absolutely. Um, Emma, I'm really, I think our listeners will also be very curious. Talking about Soulgery, it introduces a model for unlocking human potential through lived experiences. So, could you walk us through how this model has evolved, from your own journey, both in the personal and corporate settings?
Sure, happy to. Um, Individual potential or human potential has been a deep passion for me for as long as I can remember. Um, First, there was a logical reason for it because when you're in business, at the end of the day, most businesses are people businesses. You can strip the business of its
Yeah.
brands, of its factories, and everything. People will build it again. So, that was a logical reason for me to be very interested in unlocking people's potential um, while they're doing their jobs. I also had a heartfelt reason for it. When you observe an individual um, flourish, break through. I've taken great joy from that. And it was also something very personal. All of us search for meaning in life, what really matters. I've always thought of growing myself, to be the ultimate goal of life. So all of these kept me very interested in this. Um, and my mind works systemically. If I can figure out the system for something works, then I can actually apply it. So I was always searching for a systemic way to grow as a human being. That's at the foundation of growing in your profession or growing as a parent or growing as a partner. Growing as a human being is at the foundation for all of those. So,
Yep.
approaching it systemically, I started out with four things. First, I said, "What is growth?" We talk about growth, so I brought a pretty clear definition to it. I said to myself, "Growth is an ongoing journey of becoming increasingly capable, impactful,
Mhm.
and resilient." And as I sort of discuss this definition with others, I've tested it and I said, yep, that's that I personally um, like to be able to do. That will cover a lot. Then I said, okay, if that's growth and if we're interested in growing human beings, what is a human being?
Mhm.
What makes up a human being? And I then started thinking about, we have our inner selves and we have our outer selves. The outer selves are the easy part to describe. Those are the roles we play. We are mothers, fathers, professionals, sons, sisters, daughters, all these roles we play in life. And then in these roles, we engage with a lot of people. But then the more important part, well, I shouldn't say the more important, at least as important part is our inner self. So, what is our inner self made up of? And what are the various ways that our inner self and outer self are connected? Obviously, when they are in harmony, then we are whole. So, I've identified a number of um, concepts that make up the inner self, so that we can then build a growth model around it. And I went into things like, we have a will. Obviously, this represents my point of view. We have a conscience. We have a sense of self. We can experience life across four dimensions. Physically, emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. um, so then, we have skills and on and on. So the model is there. And this inner self um, sort of shines through our roles in life and makes an impact on the people that we engage with. And that impact comes back to us. And if we can run this process ourselves in a way that increases our capabilities, makes our impact more profound, and gives us resilience, um, then we grow. Then the next question became, okay, we know what growth is, we know what a human being is. So, how do we make this cycle turn in a way that grows us? And from there came the four acts of growth. So, these are sort of, I can call them connected pathways to growth. And so, I could share those with you here. One is what I called find your direction. So this is like searching for purpose or meaning. By the way, there's a nuance between the two as far as I'm concerned. Or going into that same bucket, how can we draw inspiration from real life itself? You know, really wonderful to go and meditate or do certain things and feel inspired by life. But how can we feel that inspiration from everyday life? Because we have to deal with all the challenges we face and all the deadlines we face. Can we draw inspiration? So that's like the first act. And as we feel inspired by life, how can we find meaning from it? Then the second act is about, I call it aim for impact. So in our daily lives, we are mostly concerned with what we get out of this, what we give and what we get. But in reality, if we are more focused on the impact we make on people and on events, that's a longer term, more sustained approach to fulfillment. And also an approach that grows us naturally. The more you're trying to make your impact found, the more you grow. The third one is, I call it perform with excellence. In every role we play in life, we compete with our previous best constantly. And that's the third one. And I call these three the offense game, because all the things, decisions we make in these things that I talked about are up to us. We can decide what our meaning of our lives are, we can decide what impact we want to make. But then, life does things to us. Then there's a defense game, things that happen outside our control, the challenges of life, the setbacks we have, the changes we need to adapt to, or the conflicts, you name it. Um, the fourth one, hack your growth, talks about how to approach those challenges in a growth minded way. So, so it's the definition of growth, the description of the human being, how growth happens, and then how we can accelerate that growth as part of our everyday lives through the four acts of growth. So I probably gave you a bit of a long-winded answer, but this is how this model works, and it it came out of my personal experiences, my um, curiosities about different philosophies, different religions, science, and all of that. But I tried to put something together that's practical, um, that's not religious, that's not tied to a specific philosophy, that doesn't claim to be scientifically based. But the more I check about it, it's not inconsistent with any of that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's this is absolutely, profound. First of all, I really love how you defined growth. Often we connect most of the materialistic, tangible things around us with growth. Are you growing? That means are you financially growing? Are you becoming more matured? How's your friend circle? How are your acquaintances? How responsible are you? Um, but you go at the core, impactful, but there is a nuance in there, and then resilient. Um,
Mhm.
I think these I shouldn't say skills or qualities, but these they connect with the four acts of growth that you mentioned here. And as you mentioned about that, finding our direction, it's like the inner compass that we have to seek. Um,
Mhm.
Drawing inspiration from everyday life. I believe it somehow connects with being mindful, that how from everyday life events or moments we can seek inspiration, how we are proactive or how we are reacting to all those events, how we are reacting to changes, like the offensive defense that you mentioned. And this is really it's like the most basic, the fundamentals, the 101 of it doesn't connect with your career specific or your location or culture or anything. It's more about your inner world within you. So that's really profound, Ahmed.
Yes, I've always felt, that's the foundation for anything. If you're in a leadership role in a business, if
Mhm.
you build your, skills of leading others on these skills that's leading yourself, then you're going to be more effective and you will continue to grow as a leader more because you're on a solid foundation. Now, this doesn't mean that we get this perfect. I know that even though I've written this book, uh, I will never be perfect at it. But the key thing is to keep getting better. That's what growth is, and not looking for perfection, but looking for progress.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more, Ahmed. And it's a bit of a, a kind of introspective question that did you realize all of this in your professional journey? Were you in a different, um, set of beliefs initially in your initial phase of your journey? I mean, was there any specific event or moment that transformed or anything, or it was like you just learned along the way?
Mhm. I think, Sana, some of the fundamentals of this have been in me for a long time. So, for example, I believe that before finding fault with anyone in an event that you're involved with, look first inwards. Like, look at what you could have done better. Um, so this is one of the principles of soldiery, like because we're always focused on making ourselves better first. So there were others that I tried to reflect to my leadership while I was in executive leadership roles. Some of these things I think I was doing not maybe consciously, I was just doing them. But the process of trying to write this up, and while writing it, I made one promise to myself. I'm not going to put a sentence out there which I have not personally experienced. So this is not about what should be. You know, it's not about what should be. It's about what I have experienced and then taking that experience and turning it into an actionable framework for others. So, in that process, I've become more conscious of what I was doing. So, yes, some of the fundamentals I felt I've had them all along. Some of the things I was doing, but I wasn't fully conscious of. And then while writing it, there was a lot of search, inward search, and that was also quite educational for me. Um, and eventually, so it took me a long time to do this, 8 years. It finally came out in a book that I felt comfortable about.
Definitely. That's beautiful. It's beautiful, Ahmed. Uh,
Hey.
and um, we have podcasts, we have conversations, we have books. I mean, they all talk about purpose. But what makes Soulgery different and how it connects purpose to practical everyday action? I mean, not just as a feel good concept, but more as a framework for living.
Yes, this is certainly a very actionable framework. I mean, you can start acting on Soulgery from day one. But maybe if I were to summarize a couple of the characteristics that set it apart. First of all, as I said, it's a systemic approach,
Yes.
which which has a clear definition of growth, which has a clear definition of what makes up a human being, and the four acts that connect the two. Um, it's also a very flexible framework. Even though it has 19 chapters and I cover things in a sequence, the way it's designed, you can, um, depending on where you are in life, what you may be facing, you can start anywhere on this framework. You can start applying it, applying any part of it. And then once you feel you have um, internalized that, you can move to any other part. The whole criteria for that decision is what you're facing in life as of today. So, for example, if you feel you're not disciplined enough or you're missing deadlines, you're always faced with surprises. Yeah, that chapter you read on performing with excellence, it talks about it in a way that you can take little simple things and make them actionable. But at the same time, um, it's very nuanced. So, I don't talk about discipline. I talk about finding your rhythm because discipline may sound like one size fits all. Uh, it may sound rigid. You have to follow a rigid. No, you need discipline to find your own rhythm that makes you effective. And the book guides you through that as you read it. That's just an example. So it's systemic, it's flexible, it's actionable. Um, it's very accessible, I think. Um, so let me give you one example on there's a chapter on legacies. When you hear the legacy, you sort of think about these grand accomplishments that echo through generations and all of that, and you say, "Well, legacy, is that really for me?" But it doesn't approach legacy in this way. Um, I take a quote from Pericles from ancient times. It talks about legacy. He talks about legacy as what gets woven into the lives of others. So do we not know that the words I use with you or the care that I demonstrate to you, it weaves something into your life in that moment. It just makes an impact on you. I have no idea how that impact ripples. you know,
Mm.
uh, what it leads to, but we create legacies every day. The point is to be more conscious about the impact we're making on others and purposeful about that impact. So when you think about legacy that way, it's democratized. It's for anyone. It's even for your child. So that's another accessibility of it. It's for anyone. Um, Finally, I'd say there's two other things that make Soulgery stand apart, and it's a combination of the breadth and depth of topics that we cover. Um, So, on one hand, we can cover very practical topics like dealing with a challenge, how to perform better. But on the other, we will talk about things like love, wisdom, meaning, character. It's both philosophical and practical. So, it's a pretty wide breadth. You might then say, well, if you're talking about all of that, are you just, skimpy in each one? And the answer is no, it's also very deep. Um, and when I say it's deep, it invites the reader to go into their own depths. And for that, we focus on one's sense of self. When you Google the term sense of self, you will get probably 80-90% of the hits you will get will talk about how you build a strong sense of self.
Yeah.
This is not what Soulgery focuses on. That's important, but it focuses on a more important question, and that is, how does your sense of self
Mhm.
enable or inhibit your growth? So for each of these topics talked about, from love, wisdom, performance, challenges, everything that in that wide range of topics, it invites you to become more aware and conscious of how your sense of self is influencing them. And that awareness gives you um, the ability to make your sense of self an enabler of your growth. So that's the depth and that's the breadth. And that's probably what sets it apart most distinctively. And, um, and then, as I said, you can implement this at any sequence at your own pace, set your own goals, be your own judge, and sort of feel more empowered about how you can grow yourself. Having said all of this, I always say growth is not a solo game only. I use a term, you exist within a human ecosystem. And so your human ecosystem, um, it has a key role in your growth, and you do in theirs. So Soulgery also talks about it just brings your human ecosystem in along the way, and to the extent that you grow together with them, that's the beautiful growth experience. So I hope that it was a bit of a long-winded answer, but I hope it just gave you a flavor of how different Soulgery is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like you mentioned in the four acts of growth, aim for impact, whether it's events or people. And yes, we are a part of this human ecosystem. It's not only individually growing, but whether it's small or it's big, um, we can have impact on our loved ones. We can leave a legacy, as you mentioned about it, or maybe in our organizations as well, in our teams or colleagues or our peers. So I think that's the beauty of soldiery here, and you absolutely expressed that with some really great examples, and I'm very sure our listeners are looking forward to read it, and I'm personally also looking forward to read it, Ahmed. So before we wrap this conversation, if our listeners they would like to connect with you and also get access to your upcoming book, Soldiery, what would be the best way?
Very good. I guess the first step, a milestone, is that I hope that the website, which is going to be www.soulgery.com. I expect it to be up um, before the middle of August. And then around that time, maybe a little later, the book will be in pre Amazon. And currently, my targeted launch date is October 28th. In the meantime, I have started um, posting short videos that sort of builds up into these kinds of things we're talking about, especially in light of this technological revolution we're going through. I believe, that's making this even more important that we apply Soulgery. So I have begun to um, uh, post these things that I just started called Book of Soulgery. And all of these videos are also in my YouTube account called Book of Soulgery. So, so the posts are happening now. The website's supposed to be up, well, let's say in a month's time or so, and then pre-orders would start shortly after that, and the launch specific launch date for the book would be October 28th, I believe.
That's wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the details, the links, and everything in the show notes for our listeners. And um, Emmet, this was a glimpse of the master class, a recalibration, and I believe through Soulgery, you are inviting all of us to stop chasing growth and start embodying it. To see our challenges as catalysts and our lives as the curriculum. So, thank you so much for your time, your insights, for your experiences, and of course for giving us the gift of Soulgery.
Well, Sana, you've said it so well, and thank you so much for those for such a brief and impactful summary of our conversation. Thank you for that, because as an author, when you feel understood, that's your biggest reward. There's no bigger reward than that, and your words made me feel that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emma, for your kind words. And to all the listeners out there, whether you are leading a business, a team, or simply your own next chapter, let this be a reminder that the path to success doesn't just run through strategy, it runs through soul. Until next time on BizBlend, keep growing, keep blending, and stay bold. Thank you.